The rainy encounter. The sky had opened without warning, turning what had been a merely gloomy evening into a proper deluge. Olivia Winters huddled beneath the insufficient shelter of the bus stop, cursing her decision to leave her umbrella at home despite the forecast. Her purple scrubs were already soaked through, clinging uncomfortably to her skin after her 12-hour shift at the pediatric clinic. 7 minutes, she muttered, checking the transit app on her phone. 7 minutes, until the last bus that would take her to her small apartment on the other side of Westbrook. She shivered, watching raindrops race down the plexiglass walls of the shelter. It was then that she heard it, a small, hiccuping sob, nearly drowned out by the drumming of the rain. Olivia peered through the downpour and spotted a small figure huddled on a bench at the far end of the bus shelter, almost hidden in the shadows. A child, a boy, no more than 6 or 7, with dark curls plastered to his forehead and tears streaming down his face. "Hey there," Olivia said softly, approaching slowly so as not to frighten him. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, his eyes wide and frightened like a cornered animal. He shook his head, his lower lip trembling. "I'm Olivia. I work with kids. See my funny purple clothes?" She gestured to her scrubs. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Theo," he finally whispered. "Nice to meet you, Theo. Where are your parents? Are you lost?" Theo nodded, fresh tears welling up. "My dad, we were at the bookstore. I wanted to look at the dinosaur books, but then he was talking to someone, and I saw a dog outside, and I wanted to pet it, but then it ran away, and I followed it, and then—" He broke off, his breath catching on another sob. Olivia glanced at her phone. 5 minutes until her bus. She looked back at Theo, whose small shoulders were shaking. "That sounds scary," she said gently. "Do you know your dad's phone number?" Theo shook his head miserably. "It's in my backpack, but I left it at the bookstore." 4 minutes. Olivia bit her lip. She couldn't leave him here alone. "Which bookstore were you at? Maybe we can call them. The one with the big tree inside, with the reading place upstairs." "Blackwood Books," Olivia nodded. She knew it. About 10 blocks away, 3 minutes. "Theo, I'm going to help you find your dad, okay? But first you look cold. Here." She pulled off her light jacket. It was damp, but better than nothing, and wrapped it around his small shoulders. 2 minutes. Olivia dialed the bookstore, but after 6 rings, an automated message informed her they had just closed. She tried the police non-emergency line next, but was placed on hold. 1 minute. The headlights of the approaching bus cut through the rain. Olivia looked at Theo, then at her phone, then back at the frightened child. There really wasn't a choice to make. She ended the call and slipped her phone back into her pocket as the bus pulled up with a hydraulic hiss. "Don't worry, Theo. I'm going to stay right here with you until we find your dad." The bus doors opened. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Not tonight, Joe," Olivia said with a small smile. The doors closed, and the bus pulled away, carrying with it her chance for a hot shower and her own bed any time soon. "You missed your bus?" Theo observed, his voice small. "It's okay. There'll be another one." She didn't mention it wouldn't come until morning. "Now let's figure out how to find your dad. He must be really worried about you." "He's going to be mad," Theo whispered. "He might be scared, but I bet he'll just be happy to see you safe," Olivia reassured him. "Are you hungry? I have a granola bar in my bag." As Theo nibbled on the snack, Olivia tried the police again. This time, someone answered, and she explained the situation. They promised to send an officer to check the bookstore and surrounding area. "They're going to help us find your dad," she told Theo. "While we wait, why don't you tell me about those dinosaur books you like?" As the rain continued to pour, Olivia sat beside the lost boy, listening to him gradually open up about his favorite dinosaurs, his teacher Miss Patton, and his pet turtle named Rocket. She didn't notice how cold she was becoming, or that her own stomach was growling. All that mattered was keeping Theo calm while they waited for help to arrive. Neither of them noticed the sleek black car that slowed as it passed the bus stop, then made a sharp U-turn, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. The grateful father. The black car came to an abrupt stop across from the bus shelter, sending a wave of water onto the sidewalk. Theo stopped mid-sentence about his turtle's favorite vegetables and perked up. "That's my dad's car," he exclaimed, his voice suddenly bright with recognition. Before Olivia could respond, a tall man burst from the vehicle, not bothering with an umbrella. Rain immediately drenched his expensive charcoal suit as he rushed toward them, his face a mask of worried determination. "Theo!" His voice cracked with emotion as the boy launched himself from the bench and into his father's arms. The man dropped to one knee, heedless of the puddles, and wrapped his son in a fierce embrace. "I'm sorry, Dad. I just wanted to see the dog, and then I got lost and shh, it's okay. You're safe. That's all that matters." The man's voice was deep but gentle. He pulled back to examine his son, checking for injuries, then noticed Olivia's jacket wrapped around the boy's shoulders. His gaze lifted to her, really seeing her for the first time. Olivia stood awkwardly, her scrubs still soaked, and her auburn hair plastered to her face. She offered a small smile. "You must be Theo's dad." The man rose to his full height, keeping one hand firmly on his son's shoulder. "Jackson Hayes," he said, extending his other hand. "And you are?" "Olivia Winters. I found Theo here about 45 minutes ago. We've been waiting for help to arrive." Jackson's handshake was firm but brief. His eyes, Olivia noticed, were the same deep brown as his son's, though where Theo's were wide and expressive, his were guarded. "Thank you for staying with him," Jackson said, his voice formal but sincere. "The bookstore called me when they found his backpack. I've been driving around the area since then." He glanced down at his son. "I was worried sick, buddy. Olivia missed her bus for me," Theo piped up, looking at her with newfound admiration. Jackson's brow furrowed. "The last bus of the night? How will you get home?" Olivia shrugged, trying to appear unconcerned. "I'll figure something out. Maybe call a friend." "At nearly 11 at night? In this weather?" Jackson shook his head. "No, I insist on driving you. It's the least I can do after what you've done for Theo." Before she could protest, Jackson was guiding them both toward his car, a sleek, midnight blue Tesla that probably cost more than Olivia made in 3 years at the clinic. "Nice car," she commented as Jackson opened the back door for Theo. "It gets us around," he replied, a hint of self-consciousness in his voice that surprised her. He retrieved a blanket from the trunk and handed it to her. "Here, you must be freezing." The interior of the car was warm and smelled of leather. As they settled in, Olivia gave her address, an apartment complex in a decidedly less affluent part of town. If Jackson judged her for it, his expression didn't show it. "Olivia works with kids, Dad," Theo announced from the back seat. "She has purple doctor clothes." "I'm a pediatric nurse," Olivia clarified, "at Westbrook Children's Clinic." Something shifted in Jackson's expression. "Westbrook? Dr. Farhad's practice?" "Yes. Do you know him?" Jackson nodded, pulling away from the curb. "The Westbrook Children's Foundation is one of my company's major philanthropic initiatives. I've met Dr. Farhad several times." "Your company?" Olivia asked. "Hayes Innovations. We specialize in—" "Wait, Hayes Innovations? The tech company?" Olivia straightened in her seat. "You're that Jackson Hayes?" A small, almost embarrassed smile appeared on his face. "Guilty as charged." Olivia's mind raced. Hayes Innovations was a major tech company known for its groundbreaking medical diagnostic software. They'd revolutionized pediatric screening protocols for developmental disorders. Her clinic had just started using their newest program. "Your developmental screening platform is amazing," she said, genuine enthusiasm warming her voice. "It's helped us identify issues we might have missed with traditional methods." For the first time, Jackson's reserved demeanor cracked slightly. "You're actually using it? How's the interface working out?" "We're still fine-tuning the user experience. It's mostly intuitive, though the reporting function could use some streamlining." Olivia surprised herself with her candor. "Noted," Jackson said, looking genuinely interested. "We're actually working on the next iteration now." The conversation flowed more easily after that, centered on the practical applications of his company's software. Olivia found herself sharing insights from the clinic's perspective that seemed to genuinely interest Jackson. All the while, Theo watched from the back seat, his eyes growing heavy. Too soon, they arrived at her apartment building, a modest, slightly worn complex that stood in stark contrast to what she imagined was Jackson's home. "Thank you for the ride," she said, reaching for the door handle. "Ms. Winters, Olivia," Jackson said, stopping her. "I'd like to properly thank you for helping Theo. Would you consider coming by our offices sometime this week? There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Olivia hesitated. "I'm not looking for a reward, Mr. Hayes." "Jackson, please. And it's not about a reward." He pulled a business card from his wallet. "We're looking for someone with practical clinical experience to consult on our pediatric platforms. Your insights tonight were valuable. I think you could offer a perspective we're missing." Olivia took the card, surprised. "I'll think about it." "Dad, can Olivia come see Rocket sometime?" Theo asked sleepily from the back seat. Jackson glanced at his son, then back at Olivia, his expression softening. "The invitation is open for professional or turtle viewing purposes." For the first time that evening, Olivia laughed. "I'll keep that in mind. Good night, Theo. Take care of yourself, okay?" "Promise," the boy mumbled, already half asleep. As Olivia stood in the rain watching the expensive car disappear around the corner, she looked down at the business card in her hand. Jackson Hayes, CEO, with a direct number handwritten on the back. What had started as a simple act of kindness had somehow led to this, an unexpected connection to one of the most innovative minds in medical technology. And perhaps, though she hardly dared admit it to herself, something more. She slipped the card into her pocket and headed inside, unaware that in his car, Jackson Hayes was already making plans that would irrevocably change both their lives. Behind, the wealth. The headquarters of Hayes Innovations occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming glass tower in downtown Westbrook. Olivia tugged self-consciously at her blazer, the nicest one she owned, purchased 3 years ago for her nursing school graduation, as the elevator climbed smoothly to the 42nd floor. 1 week had passed since the rainy night at the bus stop. After much deliberation and encouragement from her supervisor at the clinic, she had finally called the number on Jackson's card. To her surprise, he had answered personally, and now, here she was ostensibly for a consultation meeting that had been scheduled during her day off. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that managed to be both minimalist and impressive. A sleek desk of polished walnut stood before floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. Behind it sat a woman with a practical silver bob and sharp eyes. "Olivia Winters for Jackson Hayes," Olivia said, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. The receptionist, Harriet, according to her nameplate, gave her an appraising look. "Mr. Hayes is finishing a call. Please have a seat." Olivia perched on the edge of a modernist chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent, taking in her surroundings. The walls featured large photographs of children, not the typical corporate art she had expected. Upon closer inspection, she realized they were clinical settings, children with various medical devices, all designed with colorful, non-threatening interfaces. Hayes Innovations work. "Ms. Winters, She turned to find a young man with kind eyes and a tablet in hand. "I'm Devon, Mr. Hayes's assistant. He's ready for you now." Devon led her through sleek corridors to a corner office with walls of glass. Jackson Hayes stood by the window, silhouetted against the city skyline. He turned as they entered, and Olivia was struck again by his presence. Today, he wore a blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, looking somehow both powerful and approachable. "Olivia, thank you for coming." His handshake was warm, his eyes meeting hers directly. "How's Theo's jacket?" She smiled, remembering how she'd insisted on returning her jacket that he'd had dry cleaned and delivered to the clinic with a handwritten thank you note. "Good as new. How's Theo?" "Asking about you, actually. He wants to know when you're coming. To meet Rocket." The mention of the turtle made her laugh, breaking some of the tension she felt. "Well, I'm a busy woman. My social calendar is filled with 6-year-olds and their exotic pets." Jackson's smile reached his eyes this time. "Please sit. Devon, could you bring us coffee? And those prototype screens?" As Devon left, Jackson took a seat not behind his imposing desk, but in the chair beside Olivia's. "I want to be clear about why I asked you here," he began. "That night when you were discussing our screening software, you identified 3 practical issues that our development team, despite months of testing, hadn't caught. It was illuminating." "I just use the system every day," Olivia said modestly. "Exactly. You have the user perspective we're missing." He leaned forward. "We're developing a new suite of diagnostic tools specifically for understaffed clinics. I'd like to offer you a consulting position, part-time, working around your clinic schedule. Your insights would be invaluable." Olivia blinked in surprise. "Mr. Hayes, Jackson, please." "Jackson, I'm flattered, but I'm a nurse, not a tech consultant." "That's precisely why I want your input. Our engineers create brilliant solutions, but they sometimes miss the practical realities of implementation." His expression grew more serious. "The night you helped Theo, you mentioned the clinic being understaffed, that you'd worked a 12-hour shift. Our software should make healthcare workers' lives easier, not add complexity." Devon returned with coffee and a tablet, which Jackson took with a nod of thanks. "These are the prototype interfaces," Jackson explained, swiping through screens. "We need someone who understands the clinical workflow to help refine them." As Olivia studied the designs, offering tentative suggestions, she couldn't help but notice a framed photo on Jackson's desk, the only personal item in the otherwise austere office. It showed a younger Jackson with Theo as a toddler and a beautiful woman with Theo's dark curls and smile. Jackson caught her glance. "My late wife, Eleanor," he said quietly. "She died when Theo was 3. Leukemia." "I'm sorry," Olivia said, the simple words inadequate for the loss she saw reflected in his eyes. Jackson nodded, his jaw tightening slightly. "It was her idea, actually, the pediatric diagnostic platforms. She was a pediatrician. She always said early intervention could change the course of a child's life." The pieces clicked into place for Olivia. The company's focus on pediatric care, the photographs in the reception area. This wasn't just business for him, it was personal. "That's why you're so passionate about this work," she observed softly. Something vulnerable crossed his face before he composed himself again. "Yes. After she died, expanding her vision became important. Though I'm afraid I've been better at building the company than at—" He trailed off. "Then at what?" Olivia prompted gently. Jackson set down the tablet. "Being the father Theo needs. Eleanor was the one who knew how to connect with him. I'm better with code than emotions." A self-deprecating smile touched his lips. "My son had to get lost in a rainstorm for me to realize how disconnected we've become." The admission surprised her, this powerful man confessing his parental insecurities to someone he barely knew. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Jackson checked it and frowned. "Theo's school. Excuse me." he answered, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Yes, I understand. I'll be there as soon as possible. He ended the call with a sigh. Theo's running a fever. The school nurse wants him picked up. Of course, Olivia said, gathering her things. We can reschedule. Jackson hesitated, conflict clear in his expression. I have an investor meeting in 20 minutes that I can't reschedule. Devin could pick him up, but he needs his dad, Olivia finished for him. Yes. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. A surprisingly human gesture from someone who otherwise maintained such careful control. I'm trying to do better, but the timing... Olivia made a split-second decision. I could go with you, to get Theo. I am a pediatric nurse, after all. Jackson looked at her with surprise. You would do that? Of course. We can continue our discussion on the way, and I can help assess how serious his fever is. Relief washed over his face. Thank you. As they rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Olivia felt herself crossing some invisible boundary. This was no longer strictly professional. But something about Jackson Hayes, not the wealthy CEO but the worried father struggling to balance his responsibilities, resonated with her. In the car, as Jackson navigated through midday traffic, he spoke quietly. Eleanor would have known exactly what to do. She always did. You're doing the best you can, Olivia said gently. That counts for a lot. Jackson glanced at her, vulnerability and gratitude in his eyes. Does it? Sometimes I wonder if my best is good enough for him. The simple honesty of his question caught Olivia off guard. Behind the wealth, behind the power, was a man grappling with loss and trying to raise his son alone. For all his success, Jackson Hayes was struggling with something money couldn't solve: how to heal a broken family. And somehow, inexplicably, Olivia found herself being drawn into their story, one rainy encounter at a time. Breaking through autumn, painted Westbrook Park in shades of amber and gold as Olivia watched Theo race toward the playground, his earlier illness long forgotten. 2 months had passed since she'd accepted the consulting position at Hayes Innovations, and these weekend outings had become a regular occurrence, ostensibly to discuss project developments outside the office, but increasingly feeling like something else entirely. He has more energy than I remember having at that age, Jackson remarked, settling beside her on the bench. He looked different today in jeans and a casual sweater, the corporate armor shed for something more human. Children are remarkably resilient, Olivia replied, smiling as Theo conquered the climbing structure. Both physically and emotionally. Jackson's expression grew thoughtful. You've been good for him, for us. The simple acknowledgement warmed her more than it should have. What had begun as a twice-weekly consulting arrangement had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Olivia had become a bridge between father and son, translating Theo's needs into a language Jackson could understand, while helping the boy see the love behind his father's sometimes awkward attempts at connection. The Hayes men are pretty easy to be around, she said lightly, though her heart quickened at the way Jackson's eyes lingered on her face. Dad! Olivia, watch this! Theo called, preparing to slide down the twisting slide. They both waved, sharing a smile at his enthusiasm. These moments of simple joy had become precious to Olivia, a stark contrast to the intensity of their work together at Hayes Innovations, where her practical insights had proven so valuable that Jackson had expanded her role to include overseeing clinical implementation of their new platform. I received the final report from the pilot program this morning, Jackson said, his voice shifting to a more professional tone. Your modifications to the interface reduced training time by 40%. The nurses at Riverdale Clinic deserve the credit. They didn't pull any punches with their feedback. But you were the one who translated their complaints into actionable improvements. His expression grew more serious. The board was impressed, They've approved the full rollout to rural clinics ahead of schedule. Olivia felt a surge of pride. The project would bring critical diagnostic tools to underserved communities, something that aligned perfectly with her own values. That's wonderful news. There's more, Jackson continued, watching Theo as he spoke. They want to create a permanent position for you. Director of Clinical Implementation. It would mean overseeing the rollout nationally. Oh! Olivia's breath caught. The opportunity was tremendous, far beyond what she'd imagined when she'd first stepped into Hayes. Innovations. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Jackson said, turning to face her fully. You've transformed our approach, Olivia. The team respects you, and the salary would be... He paused, aware of the delicate ground they tread when discussing money. Substantial. Olivia thought of her small apartment, her student loans, the financial struggles that had shaped her life. Such an opportunity would change everything. Yet something held her back. What about the clinic? My patients? She thought of the children she'd come to care for, whose struggles and triumphs had defined her professional identity. You could maintain limited hours there if you wanted. We can be flexible. His hand moved as if to reach for hers, then retreated. I know how much your work there means to you. Before she could respond, Theo came bounding over, cheeks flushed with exertion. Dad, can we have the picnic now? I'm starving. Sounds like a plan, buddy, Jackson said, ruffling his son's hair, a gesture that would have seemed foreign to him months ago. Why don't you help me set up? As they spread the blanket and unpacked the elaborate picnic that Jackson's housekeeper had prepared, Olivia observed the easy interaction between father and son. Gone was the awkward distance she'd first witnessed. In its place was something tentative but growing, a genuine connection. After they'd eaten, Theo convinced them to play a game of tag that left all three breathless and laughing. When Theo ran to join some other children at the playground, Jackson and Olivia found themselves alone again, sitting close on the picnic blanket. He's happier than I've seen him in years, Jackson said softly, watching his son. You've helped me see him, really see him, for the first time since Eleanor died. You just needed a little translation, Olivia replied gently. Children speak a different language sometimes. Jackson's eyes met hers, intense and unguarded. And you're fluent in it. The moment stretched between them, laden with unspoken feelings. Olivia had tried to maintain professional boundaries, but somewhere along the way, Jackson Hayes had ceased to be merely a client or employer. His dedication to his son, his vulnerability beneath the successful exterior, his passion for making a difference, these had crept past her defenses. Olivia, he said, her name almost a question. These past months, they've meant more to me than just professional collaboration. Her heart stuttered. They have? You know they have. His voice was low, certain. When you came into our lives that rainy night, something changed, for both of us. She looked away, suddenly vulnerable. Jackson, I'm not part of your world. You're Jackson Hayes. I'm just a nurse who happened to be at a bus stop. Is that what you think? His brow furrowed. That I see some kind of class difference between us? Don't you? Your world is board meetings and innovations that change healthcare globally. Mine is taking temperatures and calming scared kids in a clinic that can barely keep the lights on. That's exactly why He stopped, recalibrating. That's why. You're essential to what we're building. You understand both worlds. You bridge them. A shout from the playground drew their attention. Theo was waving, wanting to show them something. They both waved back, the moment suspended. My world before you and Theo came into it was empty, Olivia, Jackson continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Successful, yes. Meaningful in its way. But empty. The raw honesty in his voice broke something open in her chest. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of feeling this way about you. About Theo." She met his eyes. "Of building something that could disappear when you realize I don't belong in your life." Jackson's expression softened. "The night you stayed with Theo in the rain, you proved you belong in our lives more than anyone else I've met since Eleanor. Not because you might be good for the company, because you saw what mattered most, my son, and you put his needs first without hesitation." Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. "He's an easy child to care about." "So is his father, I hope," Jackson said, a rare vulnerability in his voice. Before she could respond, Theo came running back, throwing himself between them with the boundless energy of childhood. "Dad! Olivia! I made friends with twins. Can they come over sometime to see Rocket?" Jackson laughed, the tension of the moment broken. "We'll have to ask their parents, buddy." As they packed up the picnic later, Theo chattering excitedly about his new friends, Jackson's hand brushed against Olivia's. This time, he didn't pull away. Instead, his fingers intertwined with hers for a brief, electric moment. "Think about the position," he said quietly. "But know that whatever you decide professionally won't change what's happening here." His eyes moved meaningfully between them, then to Theo. "Between us." That evening, as Olivia drove home from dropping them off, she found herself at a crossroads, both professional and personal. The position Jackson offered would transform her career, but it was the other transformation, the one happening in her heart, that both terrified and exhilarated her. Her phone chimed with a text message from Jackson. "Theo wants to know if you'll come for dinner tomorrow. Rocket has apparently been asking for you, too." Olivia smiled, feeling the walls she'd built around her heart continuing to crumble. Whatever fears she had about crossing the divide between their worlds seemed less important than the connection they'd forged, a connection that had begun with a simple act of kindness on a rainy night. She typed back, "Tell them both I'll be there." The choice. The envelope arrived on a crisp December morning, bearing the prestigious letterhead of the National Pediatric Innovation Center in Boston. Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she opened it, though the contents weren't a surprise. She had applied for the fellowship 3 months ago, long before a rainy bus stop had changed the trajectory of her life. "Congratulations," the letter began. "We are pleased to offer you a position in our Advanced Clinical Research Fellowship." Olivia sank onto her couch, the weight of the opportunity settling on her shoulders. The fellowship represented everything she had worked toward throughout her nursing career. A chance to help develop protocols that would benefit children nationwide, to publish research, to make a broader impact than she ever could at a single clinic. It also meant leaving Westbrook, leaving Hayes Innovations, leaving Jackson and Theo. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jackson. "Theo's school play starts at 6. We saved you a seat. Dinner after?" These simple domestic messages had become the highlight of her days. In the 3 months since their conversation in the park, their relationship had blossomed into something neither had expected. Tentative at first, they had grown more confident in the connection between them. Jackson had opened his home and heart to her while she had helped him rebuild his relationship with his son, and Theo, sweet, energetic Theo, had flourished with her presence in their lives. Just last weekend, he had casually referred to her as part of their family while they decorated Jackson's rarely used dining room for Thanksgiving family. The word both warmed and terrified her. Olivia set the letter on her coffee table and glanced around her small apartment. She had already given notice to her landlord, anticipating either taking the position at Hayes Innovations or the fellowship in Boston. Now the decision loomed larger than ever. Later that evening, she sat in the school auditorium, watching Theo play the role of a particularly enthusiastic tree in his class production. Jackson's hand rested comfortably on hers, his thumb occasionally tracing patterns on her skin. When Theo delivered his one line with perfect dramatic timing, they exchanged, proud glances that felt like a private language. "He was brilliant," Olivia declared as they waited for Theo after the performance. "Clearly the most convincing tree in theatrical history," Jackson agreed, his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Though I might be biased." "We both are," she admitted, realizing how natural it felt to include herself in that "we." Theo burst through the doors then, still wearing parts of his tree costume. "Did you see me? Did you hear my line? Miss Patterson said I projected just like we practiced." "You were amazing, buddy," Jackson said, pulling him into a hug. "The finest tree I've ever seen," Olivia added, bending to straighten his disheveled hair. Theo beamed at her. "Are you still coming for dinner? Gloria made my favorite pasta because of the play." "I wouldn't miss it," she promised, though her heart constricted at the thought of the conversation that awaited after Theo went to bed. Dinner at Jackson's expansive home had become comfortable routine. Gloria, the housekeeper, treating Olivia with the familiar affection of someone who approved of her presence in the Hayes men's lives. They ate amid Theo's animated recounting of backstage drama, his excitement making the letter in Olivia's bag feel heavier by the minute. After Theo's bedtime story, now a ritual shared between the three of them, Jackson poured 2 glasses of wine and joined Olivia on the living room sofa. "You've been quiet tonight," he observed, his perception of her moods now finely tuned. "Everything okay?" Olivia took a deep breath. "I received an offer today, the fellowship in Boston." Jackson's expression remained carefully neutral, though she caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "That's significant. Congratulations." "Thank you. It's a 2-year position. When would they need your answer?" "By next Friday." She turned the wine glass in her hands. "It's what I've worked toward for years, the chance to help develop protocols that could improve pediatric care nationally." Jackson nodded slowly. "Similar to what we're doing at Hayes, in some ways, but more clinical, less technological, more hands-on with research patients." She met his eyes. "It would mean moving to Boston." The weight of those words hung between them. Jackson set his glass down, his movements deliberate. "And the position at Hayes? Have you decided about that?" "That's part of what makes this so difficult," she admitted. "Both opportunities are extraordinary, and both would allow you to make a difference for children, just in different ways." His voice was steady, giving her the space to think without pressure. It was one of the things she had come to value most about him, his respect for her professional identity, separate from their relationship. "Yes." She hesitated. "But it's not just about the work anymore, is it?" Jackson's eyes softened. "No, it's not." The admission opened something between them, the acknowledgement that their lives had become intertwined in ways that transcended professional collaboration. "I care about you, Jackson, and Theo. More than I thought possible in such a short, time." Her voice caught. "The thought of leaving you both." "Then don't," he said simply, reaching for her hand. "Stay. Not just for the job at Hayes, though the offer stands and you'd be brilliant. Stay for us, for this family we're building." Family. There was that word again. "I'm afraid," she confessed, echoing her words from months ago in the park. "Afraid that if I choose you, choose this, I'll wake up one day resenting the opportunity I gave up. Or worse, that you'll resent me if I choose Boston over staying here." Jackson shook his head. "I could never resent you for pursuing your dreams, Olivia. That's part of who you are. The woman who stayed with a lost child even though it meant missing her bus. The nurse who fights for her patients. The professional who pushes our company to do better." He moved closer, his hand warm on hers. "If Boston is truly what you want, we'll figure it out. Westbrook to Boston isn't impossible. We could make it work." The offer stunned her. "You would do that? Try long distance?" "I would prefer you here, with us." but I won't ask you to give up something that matters to you." His expression became more serious. "I've learned something these past months, Olivia. Watching you with Theo, seeing how you balance care with independence. Love doesn't mean possession. It means wanting the best for someone, even when it's difficult. Love." He hadn't used that word before. It hung in the air between them, both acknowledgement and question. "What does Theo know about the fellowship?" she asked softly. "Nothing yet. I thought that should be your conversation with him. The responsibility of being someone whose decisions could hurt a child who had already experienced profound loss, weighed heavily on her. "I need to think," she said finally, "about Boston, about Hayes, about us." Jackson nodded, respect in his eyes. "Take the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, what we've built these past months is real. Distance can't change that." Later, that night, in her quiet apartment, Olivia spread both offers before her, the prestigious fellowship and the executive position at Hayes Innovations. Both represented different versions of her future, different paths to making a difference. But there was a third element now, one that couldn't be captured on letterhead or in a contract. The family that had formed unexpectedly from a rainy night encounter. Theo's laughter, Jackson's quiet strength, the home they had begun to build together. The next afternoon, she asked Jackson to meet her at the bus stop where it had all begun. It seemed fitting somehow. He arrived looking slightly puzzled, but willing to humor her request. "This is where it started," she said as they stood beneath the shelter, now dry and sun-dappled. "Where I made a choice that changed everything." Staying with Theo, Jackson nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It wasn't really a choice at all," Olivia admitted. "Some things you just know are right, even if they're unexpected or complicated." She took a deep breath. "I've made my decision." Jackson waited, giving her the space to continue. "I'm going to decline the fellowship," she said, feeling the rightness of the words as she spoke them. "Not because I'm choosing you over my career, but because I've realized there are many paths to making a difference, and the one here, the clinical director position, the work with rural clinics, and yes, building a life with you and Theo, that's the path that feels right." Relief and joy transformed Jackson's face, but he remained measured. "Are you certain? I don't want you to have regrets." "The only regret I'd have is walking away from what we've found together." She stepped closer to him. "I love you, Jackson. And I love Theo. That doesn't mean sacrificing my professional dreams. It means finding a way to integrate all the parts of my life into something whole." Jackson pulled her into his arms, his embrace conveying what words couldn't. "We love you too," he whispered against her hair. "Theo's been practicing saying it, waiting for the right moment." Olivia laughed through sudden tears. "He has?" "He wanted to make sure he got it right. He's very concerned with precision, that son of mine." "I've noticed," she said, thinking of Theo's meticulous organization of his dinosaur collection. "Will he be okay with this? With us?" Jackson's smile was certain. "He already considers you family. The rest is just details." As they walked hand in hand from the bus stop toward the future they would build together, Olivia reflected on how a single moment of kindness had cascaded into something so profound. She had missed her bus that rainy night, but she had found her way home all the same. That evening, they told Theo together. His response was typical of his straightforward nature. "Does this mean Olivia will live with us now? Because Rocket's terrarium would look perfect in the living room, and she already has a toothbrush in our bathroom." Jackson laughed, meeting Olivia's eyes over Theo's head. "We'll figure out all those details soon, buddy. But yes, Olivia is going to be a permanent part of our family." "Good," Theo declared with the certainty of childhood. "Because I already told my friends at school that she's going to be my new mom someday." The simple statement brought tears to Olivia's eyes. Jackson squeezed her hand, his expression a promise of the future they would build. Not the life she had once imagined, but something richer and more meaningful than she had dared to dream. Sometimes the most important journeys began with a missed bus and an act of kindness. And sometimes, finding your way meant recognizing when you were already exactly where you were meant to be.